Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit from Background Rise 958 and says, Am I the arsehole for taking in my ex's dogs but not my homeless ex? My wife left me and our kids a couple of years ago. She wanted a different life than what we had. She bought a converted van and tried to become a van life influencer. She got some followers, but not as many as it takes to be able to live off of it, I guess. She's in the city right now and her van needs repairs. We're in the middle of a heat wave and she needs a place to stay for a week or two. This is only the second time in 2 years she's bothered to see our kids. I've done my best to make sure that they know, even though their mum is gone, it isn't because she doesn't love them. I said she was working far away. Even after the divorce, I made sure she could have all the visitation she wanted. She doesn't want to stay with her parents because they are very critical of her choice to leave. She doesn't want to stay at a hotel because it will be a dent in her budget. I don't want her in my house because I don't want the kids to freak out when she leaves again. It's best if they see her in a neutral location. I volunteered to take her dogs so she could at least stay at a hostel. She said I was an arsehole for not letting her stay in the house she helped pay for. I bought out her equity when we divorced. It wasn't that much. My parents said I should have let her stay. The woman I'm seeing said that she would have understood if I let her stay. I just know what it would do to my kids. Edit, please stop messaging me for information on my ex. I will not say more than I have. I don't want anyone messing with her livelihood. I won't tell you what her handle is or what kind of dog she has. I have a good life without her, and my kids are doing okay. Thank you for all your concern. The absolute cheek to call you an arsehole after she's abandoned her children to become a van life influencer. People who live this van life have contingency plans for, if their van does need to go get repairs. She didn't. That's her problem in my opinion. You were very kind enough to house the dog, so she had an alternative plan. She's also got options of staying with her parents. That's her problem, that she made this choice in the first place and her parents are critical of the choices that she made. And rightly so, they're critical. Abandoning your children to do this, and you're 100% right to be protecting your children from that at the same time. For her to dip in and dip out again, yes, it's going to affect them, and you're right in doing so for protecting them from that. What an absolute arse. VT says, not the arsehole, you're being the best parent you can. She's abandoned her children and has no right to impose on them and you. She's not there to see them. She needs a cheap place to crash. It might be traumatic for you and your kids to have her leave again, and that just isn't worth it, for you or for them. You bought her out and she's used that equity to pursue her new life. She doesn't want to stay with her critical parents. Too bad. Bend her budget. Then where's the child support? Ask your mother to speak to your ex-in-laws, or your mother can offer to host her. Credit Upstairs quotes that and says, you summed it up perfectly. She's only in the same city because her van needs repairs. It's not like she made a special trip just to see the kids. It's only about convenience, not having to spend any money, since she obviously doesn't give a shit about her kids if she hasn't bothered to see them for 2 fucking years. Neon Cactus Field says, not the arsehole, she essentially has abandoned her children. Of course you don't want to completely upheave their lives by allowing this uncertainty of their mum may be coming back home. She has no right to stay in your home, but she's trying to manipulate you with a guilt trip that she helped pay for it, or conveniently forgetting you bought her out. She doesn't sound apologetic or like she has grown too much as a person, and you're being prudent to draw firm boundaries with her. M says, not the arsehole, your wife may need a place to stay, but she doesn't need your place to stay. Her parents are available, but she doesn't want to stay with them. She can afford a hotel, but she doesn't want to pay for a hotel. I don't know how old your kids are, and that's probably relevant info, but as it is, you don't seem to be withholding from your kid's mother anything she actually needs. Only what she wants, and she's not entitled to get what she wants from the family she abandoned. Envious says, not the arsehole, don't let her stay. She didn't want to see her kids because she indeed doesn't love them. Bringing her around and acting like the loving parent and abandoning them once again will do more harm than help. This woman is selfish and you should protect your kids by keeping her away, even if it's their mother. I don't know how old your kids are, but when they're old enough, you should explain and tell them the truth, because what she's doing is not selfless, but selfish. They live a lifestyle abandoning the kids. They should know instead of holding on to false hope that she's a loving mother when she is not. So 1 year later, Opie comes in with an update and says, my ex left me to pick up the pieces after she decided to try and be a van life influencer. I was devastated, but our kids were destroyed. Last year, she barreled back into our lives because her van needed work and she needed a place to stay. I did not want her in my house with my kids. She refused to stay with her parents, and because she had 2 dogs, a hotel would have been expensive. My parents, my girlfriend at the time, and several old friends said I should help her out. So I took on her dogs so she could stay at a hostel. That worked out great because she met another nomad there. After her van was fixed, they departed together. Thank Christ every day I don't let her back into my kids' life so intrusively. It was so much easier to explain that she was just gone again than to let them watch her leave. One good thing she did was abandon her dogs. I told her to come get them, but she said the new boyfriend was allergic, so I should keep them for her. I almost took the dogs to a shelter. Instead, I took them to a vet and registered them in my city. Now they are my dogs. But to be honest, they are my kids and my girlfriend's dogs. The dogs love them and tolerate me. Max is in town again. Great mum hasn't bothered seeing her kids since last summer, but she wants her dogs back. I said no. I said she left them behind like trash, like she's leaving everything. So they are mine now. She made noises about suing me. I told her to go ahead. I would love to take this public. I'm sure her followers would love to know where her dogs were for a year and why. She saw the kids for an afternoon and she tried to get them to yell at me to give her back the dogs. My kids are a little older now and see through her bullshit better. They said no. She's going a little crazy now, and the breeder she got the dogs from won't sell her more since she abandoned the last 2. She says that I'm trying to derail her career and I'm a jealous arsehole that never tried to love my dreams like she is. I told her that my dreams have never changed. To raise my kids with a woman who loved me and our children. Have a life together and see it through. I said my dreams are coming together now that she has taken herself out. She did pay a lot for the dogs, but she abandoned them in my opinion. Am I the arsehole here? Yuck. What an absolute disgusting person. I'm glad you took those dogs in and yeah, never give those back. They sound like they're with a stable family right now. I wonder how those kids felt that afternoon when she visited them. She's trying to fight for these dogs, yet abandoning her children time and time again. Just absolutely abandoning everything around her. I have to ask the question at this point. At what point can you actually cut her off? Because, you know, dipping in and out your children's lives like this just feels like it's going to do more damage. She sounds like an absolute awful person. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from ExtremeBus7141 and says, Am I the arsehole for telling my mum I did not want her there when I got home from deployment? I, 21 male, have been deployed for the past 10 months and will be getting home in 1 week. My wife and I's plan was for her to be the only one to know what date I was coming back, so that when I get leave we can go back and surprise all of our family and friends. My wife, 21 female, visited home a couple of weeks ago for a family event, and while she was there she spent a day with my mum and 2 younger sisters, high school age. My mother is very pushy and hates surprises, so much so that me surprising her by coming home would make her mad at me. My wife and I knew we'd eventually have to tell her because of this, but we were waiting until the last minute because she would have told my sisters if she knew my date. Well, while my wife was there, my mum pushed and pushed, telling her that she would not speak to her, let the girls go places, and she had to know so she could take days off work. My wife gave her a week range of my leave, a couple weeks after I get back, that she could request off. Well, my mum texted me today telling me that she'll be there for the welcome home when our plane lands. I asked if she cleared this with my wife, seeing as she apparently planned to stay with us in our 1-bedroom apartment. And she said no. I asked if the girls knew and were coming, and she said no. My mum has done a few things that presses between my wife and I, so I lost it on her. Told her I wouldn't be giving her the date that I fly in, and if I wanted her there, I would want my sisters there as well. I stopped there until she started complaining that she was a single mum who raised me on her own, and that I should want to see her first. That's when I told her I didn't want her in my house at all when I first get home. I am a married, grown man now. I don't need my mum. I want to see and spend time with my wife first and foremost. She pressed further, saying, I've been here for you since before you were born. She's been here for 4 years. Eventually trash talking my wife, saying she doesn't even have a real job and doesn't contribute. My wife is a nanny while she's in a school, and she gets paid well, so she absolutely does contribute more than enough. This is where I may be the arsehole. I told my mum that I was tired of her badgering, that I wanted to come home to my wife and be alone in our home with our pets. My wife and I would not want to host her, and we wanted the house to ourselves so that we can have sex whenever and wherever we please because we haven't seen each other in so long. My mum cried. She's sending me long paragraphs texts every few hours about how she doesn't know where her caring son went, about how I need to let my wife go because I use her for a body, about how all I care about is my own pleasure, and I have no care for my family at all. So Reddit, am I the arsehole? I haven't responded to the messages my mother is sending, but if I get ideas from the possible comments, I might. You know, we see a lot of these stories where with manipulative mother-in-laws controlling their sons, and you're going about this in the right way. It might even be time to increase it a little bit more. She knows towards the end there, you're saying she's sending you long paragraph text about she didn't know where a caring son went and you need to let your wife go. So it's time to take this up to the next level, almost like low contact kind of stuff until she gets her shit together. Possibly even no contact at this point. I mean, she's trash talking your wife, telling you to let her go, saying she doesn't contribute. Out there, backwards behavior. A commenter says to OP, good job finally standing up to her. Stop giving her info and stop talking to her. Mum, until you learn to act like an adult and stop trash talking my wife to me, or not be communicating with you. I'm very disappointed in you and how incredibly selfish and immature you are acting. Don't make your wife deal with this jerk. Opie says I haven't given her info. She told me she was coming for my plane to land and she didn't even know when that date was. The only info she got was from my wife and was quite literally worded as, he will likely have leave within these few weeks. But those weeks could change. Someone says, could she find you at the airport? Opie says she won't be able to even if she wanted to. The runway we land on is on base. To a different commenter, Opie says she literally cannot get onto the base without me or my wife with her, or my permission for a visitor's pass. I won't be giving that permission, so she can try everything she wants. She's not getting in. A commenter says you need to tell your CO and XO about your mum. Do not put it past her to try contacting your unit to get more information on where you are, when you are, and how you are coming home. As embarrassing as it is, you've got to protect yourself here and probably go low to no contact with your mum for a while. Opie says she did this in basic training. Called the base I was at so many times that they had to pull me from intake to call her and tell her to leave people alone. After that, I knew she didn't need information. She doesn't even fully know my MOS. Commenter, as part of a longer comment, says she's an example of a manipulative parent. Here's a paragraph from an article about manipulative parents and their signs. Parents using emotional blackmail will often threaten to withdraw their love or approval if the child does not comply with their wishes. This can manifest as guilt-tripping the child, making them feel responsible for the parent's happiness, or expressing extreme disappointment when the child does not meet their expectations. Opie says that paragraph fits what she's been doing to a T. What confuses me is none of my mum's behavior like this started until we got married. Before, when she was just my girlfriend, she always wanted her around, joked about trading me and my wife, invited her everywhere my family went. Now it bothers her when we spend time together, and she isn't invited when she thinks she should or can be. Commenter says to OP, she's jealous of your wife. She wants to be close to you, platonically of course. I've heard cases like this. She obviously cannot grasp the idea of you becoming an adult. You need to tell her, no, you're not a little boy anymore. Opie says I have. It didn't work much, so I just started going low contact, mostly keeping it about my sisters. If we will visit, of course this because I wasn't willing to just let her think she could step in on me and my wife, especially without consulting me first, considering she is the only one home taking care of our place right now. The commenter says, sounds like a tough situation, man. I had something similar with my in-laws once. It's not easy to navigate family dynamics sometimes. Do you think she'd respond better if your wife talked to her instead? Opie says no. I think she would go after her more honestly. After her telling my wife we shouldn't speak to her or let my sister spend time with us if my wife didn't tell her when I'd visit home. I think having my wife tell her she isn't welcome would just go the same, if not worse. Not only that, but my wife is a people pleaser. She's extremely sweet and would do anything to accommodate anyone, even if it isn't what she wants. She's getting better about having a stronger spine, as she calls it, but I don't want to put her in a position that would make her uncomfortable. If my mum went to my wife herself, I would want my wife to stand up for herself. I don't want to ask her to do that for me. Commenter says, oh my god, you need to either go no contact or very low contact with your mum. Wow, that's just wow. Been there. My mum was the last thing I thought about when I got back from deployment. I mean, God forbid you get stationed overseas. What will she do then? Fucking move in? You need to nip that in the bud now. Opie says I already don't contact them much outside of for my sisters, and neither does my wife. Our plan when my contact ends is to move to a base even farther from home, where we'd have to fly for visits. That would take our amount of visits down a lot because we travel with our pets, but they're both large dogs and we don't want to put them under a plane, and plane tickets on top of pet boarding is expensive. If people would want to see us, they would have to come to us. Oh, and my mum refuses to get on the plane. One final commenter says to OP, not the arsehole, your mum is way too involved in your life, as she always had such an unhealthy attachment to you. OP says after reading the comments and thinking back on how things have been when I was a kid to now, it seems that when our dad passed away, I became a stand-in. She practically expected me to be a father figure to my sisters, starting at 8. Even now, I have my mum's calls blocked because when my sisters are in trouble, she calls me and tells me to talk to them instead of dealing with it herself. Ooh, dearie me. So then, OP came in with her update and said a few people asked to stay updated, so here is the first one. Spoiler alert, it's not necessarily a fun one. Unfortunately, because of another wife sharing our flight date all over Facebook, our return has been pushed back an entire month. What? I called my wife to let her know and we're both devastated. I only had enough time for one phone call, so I asked my wife to let family and friends know, including my mother. Yes, I know many people might not be happy about that, but again, she didn't receive a date. My wife's text to her was just that I would not be returning until a month later or more. My mother's reaction to that news has truly solidified what many comments were telling me. I was raised by a narcissist. Her text back to my wife, oh, that's great. That's actually much better timing for me. My wife's response to my mother was, do not say that to my name. He is devastated that would be gone longer, and he has been talking about wanting to be home ASAP since just a few months in. I wish you wouldn't have even said it to me, and I'm devastated by his return being delayed as well. It is extremely selfish for you to be glad he is away from home for even longer simply because it works better for you. I've never in my life heard of a mother being glad that a child will be overseas longer than what was planned. After that, she blocked my mum. Her shiny spine is really developing. I've not reached out to my mother and I will not be doing so. I won't block her, as with my sisters being minors, I would like for one of us, my wife or I, to have at least some line of communication in case of some family emergency. However, I will not be texting or calling, and any other texts or calls will not be answered unless I consider them an emergency. There are a few other questions and deeper explanations from my original post, so I figured I'd go into them deeper here. My father passed away when I was 6. Ever since then, my mum sort of relied on me when it came to raising my sisters. Even with them being high school aged, it continued. When I went into the military, my mum got upset, saying things at home would be just terrible with me gone. That she didn't know how she would handle my sisters on her own, and that life would seem more pointless without her son in it every single day. When my wife and I got married and moved to my first duty station, she begged to trade my sisters off, sending one of them to stay with us every few weeks, where they would stay in our living room. She even told us we'd need to purchase a hide-a-bed couch for it to work out. Obviously that's never happened, as I told her my sisters were my sisters and her kids. It was not my responsibility to raise them. My mum and I were very close when I was growing up. I considered her one of my best friends and someone I could always go to. That changed when I got married. I also realized that some of the things she did were not healthy or good parenting moments. My mum started purchasing condoms for me when I was only 12. She was very open about sex with me and was not one to shy away from it. She's completely fine with me having sex at such a young age, which did lead me to being a bit of a man whore. Before my wife, I constantly snuck in girls, snuck out to hang out with girls and whatever else. My wife was the first girl that I brought to my house during the day, introduced to my family, invited her for dinner. My wife was also very strict with her views on sex when we started dating. We were friends before, so she knew I was a bit of a player. Where I viewed sex as something fun, she viewed it as something that should only be between two people who truly love each other. She was not down for it until a few months into us dating, and I was willing to wait for her. We still snuck around, but when she snuck me in, we quite literally played Mario Kart, watched movies and hung out all night. When this part of me changed, it changed something about my mum for some reason. She did used to ask about the girls I was sleeping with when I was in high school, but when she asked about my wife when we started dating, and I told her we weren't doing anything like that, she got frustrated about me lying. She stopped buying me condoms, which I was fine with because I didn't need them in the beginning, and when I did, I was 18, completely fine with buying them myself. Before my wife and I ever did have sex, she'd come into my room and scream about how she didn't want me having sex under her roof. I thought that she just realized that encouraging a minor to have sex wasn't okay. My mum also liked my wife when she was just my girlfriend. This always confused me until I read people's comments. Her going from loving her, inviting her to everything, asking where she was when she wasn't with me, to trash talking her, didn't make sense to me until people in the comments of my last post clarified that it was in fact that she was my wife. Her being permanent is what my mother doesn't like. And as far as cock blocking, my mum has happily done that since we've been married. She screeched and hid her face when I kissed my wife at our wedding. Oof. She begged us to sleep on a pallet. Pallet? In our living room on our wedding night. We didn't. She tried calling 3 times a day when we first moved. Once around the time I usually got off work, once either during or after dinner, and once at night. Sometimes while my wife were mid-tango. Sometimes when we were already asleep. It was very rare that I actually answered these calls, and when she realized their calls were muted, they faded away. She FaceTimed seemingly once an hour on our first wedding anniversary. Again, I didn't answer. Her wanting us to host her when I first got back was not her being clueless. She knew what she was trying to do. Now that I have a new return date, my mother will not even know the possible weeks I might leave. She won't need to. I do not plan on seeing her outside of maybe going out to eat with her, my wife and the rest of the family. My wife will be organizing it. I will be able to ask my sisters about days my mother is off work. That's all I have as far as an update right now. I may post more before returning, just based on how things go. I can imagine I will have plenty of an update when I do actually return. Oh, no doubt, mate. I'm certain that mum isn't going to leave it just at that. She sounds a bit obsessive in some ways, but now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day. Okay, I know that